Good morning, good evening, good day, and welcome to Dramabuds. I'm Francine. I really love K-dramas, and I'm going to spend as much time as I want talking about them. Welcome to my podcast. So, hello everyone. I realized that by the time this episode is posted, I think I'm going to approach my 5th month doing this podcast, which is a crazy thought because it's like, I really had to talk that much about K-dramas? Like, really? We made it to 5 months and we're gonna keep going? Really? And so I thought, you know what? It's time to shake things up. Like, recaps, rants, and reviews, they're great, but maybe let's try something different. So, as seen in the title, this new type of episode is called Second Chances. So what does that mean? Well, needless to say, I watch a lot of shows, right? I mean, I watch a lot of K-dramas. I think as of now, I have watched like 43 or 44 shows as I'm recording this, and it's it's definitely not the end of that list. But aside from watching a lot of shows, I also drop a lot of shows before I even get to finish them. And so, like, most of the time, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. It just wasn't for me. But just something irks me, when, like, the general response of a show is really positive. Like, if it's an old show and, like, I've just heard so many good things about it, but then when I watched it, I didn't really feel it. So I stopped watching because to me, it's like, maybe it was overhyped. Or, like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I wasn't appreciating it enough. Like, sometimes I'm just not in the right headspace to appreciate a show at the moment. But yeah, like, if I feel like I didn't enjoy a show, or I ended up dropping a show that other people, like, really liked, I have this, like, FOMO, fear of missing out. It's like, am I missing out on a really good show? Did I just not give it the right chance or something? So on this type of episode, I give second chances to shows I've dropped. Just like a little disclaimer for second chances episodes. It's really not a recap. Like, I can't go through every detail of the show because, like, I do that for shows I love because I really want to, flesh out the characters, like, to introduce the show to people. Like, when I make recaps, rants, and reviews, like, I try to, be as spoiler-free as I can. I try to introduce the characters and the story to, like, entice people to watch it. Okay? But with second chances, it's just like, I really don't have the love for this show to make me put in that kind of effort because, like, I've already dropped it before for one reason or another, and I can't help but have this, like, slightly negative opinion on the show because, I've already dropped it before. I digress. Essentially, this is not a recap type of episode. Okay, I'm just going to talk about, like, it's like a reflection of sorts. It's just me talking about how my preferences, how the shows that I previously watched, or my biases for or against certain actors, like, all of those subjective experiences. How can that affect my viewing experience? And, like, how did that prevent, like, what made me not like it in the first place? What did people say about it? And, like, what did I feel about it when I gave it that second chance? However, it's a second chance, but it's not really like a full chance. How do I explain it? I hate saying this, but I do watch these shows on, like, 1.5 times or even 2 times speed. And I just binge it and I try to finish it as soon as possible. Why? Because I'm not here to savor the show. I savor shows I like. But if I'm really not into it and I just want to see what's up, what is this show? Like, what do people like about it? What value does it have? Is it watchable? I just want to watch it, but I'm not here to appreciate it. However, I can't say that I'll end up liking the shows I give second chances to. But if I do, that's wonderful. That's great. Maybe I'll watch it on normal speed. But that's not a guarantee. Like, that's not definitely going to happen. So I will warn everyone before I begin, like, if it's not a positive review. Because, like, not everyone wants to hear criticism about the shows they like. Totally, totally valid. Like, stay in your happy world with the shows you like. That's great. Like, if people don't like it, let them not like it. Call me tasteless. It's fine. But, like, my point is, let's respect each other's preferences. And on that note, this is the disclaimer for the show. I did not like Run On. So, if you liked it, I will give you 3 seconds to exit this episode. Okay, so hello. You're here. You decided to stay. Thank you for staying. I do not hold it against anyone who, decided I don't want to hear negative things about a show I like. Totally, totally valid. Please enjoy your happiness. But now it's time to talk about Run On, a show that I gave my second chance to, and okay, whatever. Let's go to that later. So, in the first place, why did I end up watching Run On? Little background on me. I love Im Shi-won. I love him. I mean, of course, I first watched him in Missing. We all know what I feel about that show. And then I watched him in Strangers from Hell, which was just a little messed up, but he was fantastic in that. And then I watched his movies. I watched him in The Merciless and in The Attorney. So I know he can act. Like, he can act like crazy, okay? I know he's an excellent actor, but he does more like hardcore roles. Like, gangster, psychopath roles. So I know he can do the darker side of acting. But I wanted to see him in like a rom-com or this romance-focused role. So yeah, I was really, really, really excited for this before it came out. And then I watched the first episode and I wasn't completely impressed. It's like, I watched this with like pure optimism and excitement, okay? I really wanted to like it. I just couldn't get into the characters. Like, by the first episode, I couldn't get them at all. Both of the main characters, okay? And like, honestly, I felt like the role wasn't going to highlight Shiwon's acting. Like, his excellent acting. Like, with how awkward and aloof, Ki Sun-kyum, the character was, I was just very much scared. It's just like, oh my gosh, what if they think he's a bad actor because of this role? Guys, this guy is Jangure, okay? He is the Jangure. So please do not ever call him a bad actor because of a, awkward, aloof role. But yeah, okay, that was my first impression of it. And then I dropped it like halfway in the second episode. Because there was just something so off about it that I couldn't get into, and I couldn't place why. Like, why wasn't I into this? When, I have so many reasons to like it. I mean, Shiwon. 1, he looks so good in this role. 2, it's like, it's very pretty to look at and all that. And 3, it's about like, adults kind of about their careers and dreams a little bit. Something like that. Yeah. But, okay, so I dropped it. Because it was just something was off about it. And then later that night, I thought like, am I really going to drop a show of my baby boy? Like, is this really how it's going to end? So I thought, okay, I'll finish the second episode. I'll watch it in like 1.5 times speed just to see what happens. Maybe like the end of episode 2 will be super interesting and like it'll show me more about what the plot of this show actually is, or it'll tell me something about the characters that's compelling enough to make me stay. And like, okay, it wasn't like super interesting or super compelling, but when I watched it in 1.5 times speed, somehow it became okay. Like, for some reason. So, okay, I decided, all right, I'm giving you a chance. You are back on the currently watching list. And I tried to pick it back up again in like normal speed. And then midway through episode 3, I can't watch it the way it's supposed to be watched. Okay? And then I saw some articles or comments saying it's like a dialogue heavy show. And I realized, oh, that's why I don't like it. It's hard. It's so difficult to explain why. But it's like, I like slow shows. This is a slow show, definitely. But I like them silent and contemplative. You know, I like seeing characters think and thinking about what they're thinking of, but I don't want them to tell me what they're thinking. Okay, I just want to think about what they're thinking. Okay? And like, the annoying thing was, they're talking so much. There's so much dialogue, right? They're always expressing their thoughts and feelings and whatever. But by the 3rd episode, I still couldn't figure the characters out. And then I just decided, like, I'm gonna fully drop this because I really can't stand, like, this feeling I have that is not positive and I don't understand where it's coming from. And then, okay, so I dropped it, right? Living my life normally. And then, every week or as time passes by, like, people I follow on Twitter and all that, like, everyone seemed to love it. Like, everyone seemed to really like the vibe and the progression of everything. And, like, it's light. The dialogue is nice. I mean, it's nice to screenshot on Twitter because they're, quotable quotes. I mean, the main couple is cute. There's good representation of the LGBT plus community and people and their relationships and all that. Like, there are so many reasons why people like this. So there were times when I was tempted, the FOMO is hitting me. I wanted to pick it back up again. But then I also wanted to wait for it to finish. Because it could drop the ball at the very end. Like, it could mess up. So I just want to be sure that if from start to finish, people in general like this, so that maybe I'll give it a chance. And, people seem to like it very much as it ended. So I thought, all right, sure, everyone's praising it, so maybe it's worth a second chance. And then when I picked it back up from the very beginning, and I decided to watch it in 1.5 or 2 times speed already because for me, it was way more tolerable that way. So my goal is not to appreciate this the way others appreciated it. Once again, my goal is to get through it and to see what people liked about it, what value it has, and like, is it watchable, okay? So yeah, I picked it up from the very beginning, 2 times speed, watching it in the way that was most tolerable for me, and yet I was still underwhelmed. Like, everything that people praised about it, I was just underwhelmed. Okay, let's start with my main gripe, which is surprisingly, to everyone's surprise, I'm sure, my main gripe is about the dialogue of this show. Like, everyone praises the dialogue of the show to the high heavens, but I could not get into it because people talked so much. And like, I don't know, this might just be me. It's a me problem. I just don't like it when people talk too much. I like seeing things, right? Not just reading things. But it also might be because I watched it in 2 times speed. But I did that because I realized I didn't really need to watch what was going on. I just needed to read what they were saying because they constantly kept talking. I felt like there was no real symbolism. And then like, the shots that they were taking, the shots that they used or anything. Like, there was no visual symbolism to me most of the time. Yeah. And like, even when I was watching in 2 times speed, there were barely any like pauses or silences. Like, there were no moments that made me want to put it back to normal speed. Okay. And here's something I noticed. Like, for me, as someone who watched it the way I watched it, with my preferences and like my standards of the things I enjoyed, okay, there were no moments. Like, full every aspect of that scene just was impactful. There were only lines. Like, there were lines that were pretty and were nice to screenshot and share on Twitter so everyone can say like, wow, what a deep line. But there was no moment for me. I mean, I'm sure there were nice moments where, the lines were nice, so you felt like you could think about that. But like, it just felt kind of like, if I read this on a book or in a fanfic, That would be nice. But I'm watching a TV show. I should be seeing something more than just like a pretty shot with nice color grading. I sound like a terrible person right now. I sound so... But okay, like, I didn't feel like I should feel anything because nothing was allowed to settle until the next line came in. And you'd say, hey, you're the one who watched it in 2 times speed. Of course, there's no time between lines. But I'm just like, no, okay. I really didn't feel like anything was allowed to settle. Like, you say something and then you really like think about what it means. Because I just feel like they're constantly talking, line after line after line. Like, I'm sure the scripts for, they say like a usual script is like 1 page is for 1 minute of runtime. And I'm sure like if this is a 70-minute show usually, I'm sure there were like 100 pages per episode because they just talked so much, all of them. But I digress. And like another gripe I had with this was like I felt like it was trying too hard to have quotable quotes. I mentioned this, like quotes that are pretty to screenshot and share on Twitter. And because of that, people didn't talk like real people to me. Like, they were always just witty and profound, and everything they say has some deeper meaning. But, like, even in the stuff that's just everyday dialogue, just like talking about, daily things, it felt very unnecessary. Because it's as if they have to constantly explain their behavior and their background and their thoughts and everything, even when they're supposed to be familiar with each other already. Like, even the roommates, like, it seems like they have to explain everything that they do and say as if you don't know each other enough, that you don't need to say what you're doing or thinking. I don't know. Like, everything has to be verbalized as if it's a book. And the thing is, even books have like stretches of introspection, like if you were to imagine the scene that you're reading in a book, that introspection is silence, surely. Or you're working in you're reading into the inner mind of whoever's perspective you're seeing, but like there is some silence there. But it seems like this is a book that has, constant dialogue, which if I read a book or a fanfic like that, I would not actually read a book or a fanfic like that. And like, I said something like this before, but some shows are better off as books. Like, there should be silence. There should be introspection. There should be time to let things simmer and settle. People shouldn't just like talk and talk and talk and talk until it doesn't even... And like, yeah, my gripe is just that they don't really talk like real people. It's like everything they say is so quirky and so, eloquent and so witty and all that. And now we go on to my next gripe, which is that characters didn't feel like people. They felt like characters. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, some shows, like other shows are like, yeah, I feel like these are people that I see in real life. It's like however they are. I'm not saying like, oh, because they're good people, they're bad people. No. They're just like realistic people that, aren't trying to be something unique. However, the characters here, like, I'm sorry if they're like your comfort characters or whatever, but like, they felt very... trying hard to be quirky or quote unquote real, like, oh, relatable. Like, when Tumblr girl, the Tumblr girl description of relatable things or relatable people, like, that's what they seemed to be for me. It's like, when, who's that actor, the Hunger Games girl? Oh my goodness. What is the name of the girl from the Hunger Games? Like, she's, she was, whatever, her name, whatever, who she was. Back in like the early 2010s, when the Hunger Games was huge and like everyone was, on Tumblr just praising her because, whoa, she's so relatable. She's such a real girl. She just wants to sit on her couch and eat pizza, and she's not glamorous or fabulous or whatever. It's just like when right? Do you get what I'm talking about? That's how I feel about them. It's just like, wow, you're so relatable. So my point is, they're trying so hard to be quote unquote real instead of just being real. And so the most real character to me was So-dan, Choi Soo-young's character. But not even that much. Like, she was just forgive my language, but she's just a bitch. But even like that, I know some of those people, or like it makes sense based on her background and everything, but like she's also a little bit, just like, someone acts that way. I also don't. I'm just not convinced by any of these characters. Really, they're just not real people to me, and the way that they talk, it doesn't help. Okay, another gripe. I have several gripes. So I really didn't understand like the individual journeys of the main characters. Just talking about the main two, okay? So for Ki Sun-kyum, Im Shi-won's character, he's the only one with a journey that I kind of cared for. Not really cared, but I felt something for it, which was not entirely indifference. It's just like, I do want you to succeed somehow. But I wasn't super invested in it. I kind of understood, like, he was starting from nothing. Like, he was on a clean slate kind of journey. And it's like, in the middle of, like, when you quit something and when you start something again, like, the period between that, when you're just in limbo. Like, I understand that's where he was at this time in his life. So that kind of made sense that he was pretty aimless. He was directionless. Like, that is the struggle. That is the journey. And like, he's, starting from nothing, discovering himself outside of his associations to others and all that. Like, I get it. I think I feel the most for his journey because I actually understood his journey. He was learning more about himself and learning more about the world outside of just himself or just his the world he used to operate in. Okay. And then nothing else. I mean, his ending, whatever, what happened to him is like, okay, it's not super climactic. It's not that intense, but like, okay, makes sense. I accept it. And I just feel so indifferent to most of them. At least I'm not gonna say I don't hate them, but I am indifferent to most of them. I am least indifferent to Ki Sun-kyum. And like, it took me so long to warm up to his character because, that's when, like, I only ended up warming up to Ki Sun-kyum when I realized, like, oh, his character is aloof. He's just unbothered by things. He just keeps going. He runs on. Is that even what the title is meant to mean? Whatever. But, I realized, like, it took me so long to warm up to his character until I realized that. And so, like, Shi-won is not a bad actor, guys. I just need to defend him. I just need to make sure that people know he's not a bad actor. Watch him sing. Watch his movies. He's great, guys. This is really, like, a blip. Like, it's just a drop of his talent. I swear. But the real character I had issues with was Oh-mi-ju, which was Shin Se-kyung's character. Because Oh-mi-ju had no journey, in my opinion. It's like, okay, at the start of the show, she seemed pretty stable in like employment and finances, even if she was a freelancer. She seemed okay with herself and with her relationships, like with the friends she had. She liked her job despite all the struggles in the industry and all that. Yeah. Okay. So it seemed like her main struggle was just finding Sun-kyum cute and different from, his different way of thinking about life and just liking him. Like, I'm sorry, it just genuinely seemed to me like her main issue was just having feelings for Sonkyung and not really knowing what to do with them. Yeah. And that she had no individual journey. Like, she wasn't really aiming for anything. She wasn't like, things were not happening to her that led her to change. Like, yeah, okay. She had some childhood struggles, right? She had trauma and all that. But she seemed like a well-adjusted person despite of it. Like, as I said, like, she seemed to be okay. Alright, right? And then when Ki Sun-kyung's dad, like, looked down on her for it and whatever, like, yeah, she was sad. She was a bit broken about it. And then she broke up with Sun-kyung because, you know, she loved herself. She loved herself too much to let herself be, you know, mistreated or talked down on like that. Okay. So it didn't seem like she lacked in self-love. So, like, is her journey about finding the courage to love even if it's difficult? I feel like I'm guessing. I'm grasping on straws here, trying to figure out, like, what is she supposed to be? What does she want? Because, I mean, like, okay, love is a journey. Like, it's, I guess, but where, like, communication? Figuring out how to communicate? Doesn't feel like it. Being more open to new people, love. I'm just really pulling themes out of my butt right now. I cannot come up with what she's supposed to be. And so tell me, why is everyone saying that the message is about self-love? Like, is it because she literally said those words? Like, she literally said, you know, I love myself more than anything, like that. And so, like, others would, you know, come at me and rebut and say, like, you know, why does everything have to be so drastic and so dramatic? Like, why can't you just accept, like, a chill story? A chill story about what necessarily, you know? I think I like a little more drama, a little more. Because, like, there felt like there were no stakes in this story. At least for her, she was not really losing anything by doing anything. Like, Sun-kyung, you know, with his actions, lost his career and broke off from his father, who, you know, didn't really stop supporting him financially. Like, he was still very secure. He really wasn't like completely independent or anything. But, you know, he broke from his image and like threatened his father's position and all that. And, you know, essentially disrupted like the begrudging harmony of their family that just accepts things. Him, I kind of see that there are some stakes to his actions. But to her, I felt like there were no stakes in her story. She just liked him and wanted him to like her back. Really, I'm really like genuinely confused as to what I'm supposed to think her story is. I'm not going to give the show a third chance, okay, just for me to figure it out, but really. And like, once again, I feel like the messages and themes are like lost on me when they're force-fed. And like when they're so explicit, like when you outright say like, I love myself, self-love, like, it's so explicit that it doesn't feel meaningful because I didn't come to the conclusion that your story is about this. That's just how I feel, okay? That's just how I feel. And so, like, okay, with the message of this show, if self-love really was the message of the show, and I'm basing this off, like, Twitter, okay, and general opinions, because I just personally did not get the message from the actual show. If self-love was a message, then I guess it's just not something that appeals to me anymore. And so for this portion of the episode, I will simply overshare. I will overshare about my life. You know, just for you to understand that statement. Like, what do you mean you don't stand for self-love? What's wrong with you? Like, no. Listen to my story so that you will understand. Okay? I will overshare, but I promise it will mean something. I will connect it to the show somehow at the end. Okay. So, before everything, before the pandemic, right? Before all of this, I was around people and I was perceived. I was perceived by people, and their perceptions of me affected how I perceived myself. If people thought of me as like a terrible, bossy, mean person, I thought I was a terrible, bossy, mean person, and I would therefore act that way. If I were like a smart, responsible, competent person, I am a smart, responsible, competent person, and I will act that way to maintain that image, because that is what people think. That is who people think I am. And so when I'm unable to maintain that image, I felt like I disappointed people. Because I don't know. I don't know why I thought that way. When I was a kid, I thought people cared. But now that I'm older, no one cares about you. So care about yourself. But anyway, my point is, I couldn't see myself outside of what I thought people thought of me. But now that I've been home, I've been at home for almost a year. I have been, within the four walls of my house for, oh my lord, by the time this is posted, probably about a week or 2 weeks below a year. Almost a year, basically. So, now that I've been at home for so long, I have not been perceived by people. I do not exist to them. I exist to them as a memory. But who I am, who I truly am at the moment, that's only for my eyes to see, for myself to perceive. And so I was able to evaluate myself just as myself without the perceptions of others clouding my thoughts. And I realized I'm okay. I'm really not that bad. I am all those things that they think I am. Yeah, a little bit, sure, but I'm way more than that or way less than that, and it doesn't matter. Because I'm cool with whatever's here. Sure, we can work on some things, we can be better, but we're aware of that. And so it's not necessarily self-love. I don't necessarily love myself. I mean, I do, but I'm more of just okay with myself. And back then, that seemed like such a radical thought. What? To be okay with who you are? With how you are? But my point is, okay, if prioritizing yourself over prioritizing others or loving others before yourself, if those are the expressions of self-love that this show is trying to promote, then it also does not relate to me, because one, romantic love-wise, I don't care, and two, familial love-wise, my family's pretty cool, so I don't mind loving them before I love myself. My point is, it just doesn't relate to me. The message that they're trying to tell with what they told it with, the situations that they told it with, it just doesn't relate to me. Okay. So yeah, back to the show. See, I still managed to connect my oversharing somehow to the show. So if that's what the message of the show is, it's not bad. It's really not a bad message. I'm definitely sure some people need to hear something like that. Stop chasing after, someone who doesn't see you for who you are, or who puts you down. Love yourself first. Prioritize yourself, of course. Yeah, that's a great message to those who need to hear it. But yeah, it's not a message that I particularly need to hear right now. And I also don't particularly like how it was delivered. And so I felt am I looking deeper into the wrong things? Is my focus on the story or the development of the characters when I should have just read the lines because that's where the message is? Was I looking too deeply into this show, that I didn't notice what they were trying to force feed into me? I wasn't paying attention? Is that why I didn't get the message of this show? So yeah, I'm really working under just the assumption of what this show is supposed to tell me. And what I think it's telling me is just not something that I particularly need to hear. Once again, need to mention that it's not a bad message. I'm not saying the message is bad, and that's why I don't want to hear it. I just saying like, just not for me. And so like, if that is really your main hook, like the thing that you're so into about this show, well, it's definitely something that is central to any kind of show. And if that is the heart of the show and it just is not my cup of tea, then makes sense why it just doesn't hit for me. Okay. Moving on. I will have to say though, I think the enemy here, the true enemy, my true enemy, is the writer of this show. It's really no one else. Like, I really will pin most of the blame of why I didn't like this show to the writer. Really. Because it's, first of all, it's a rookie writer, which is not a bad thing. Like, hey, some rookie writers are super, super, super good. Okay, some of their shows, I love them the most. Like, no hate against rookie writers. Everyone should be given a chance. But this rookie writer in particular needs an editor. Needs someone to like cut out some of these lines, you know? Fill it up with some action or some silences. Like, give the work some room to breathe. You know? It's like, here's my theory on this writer. I felt like they didn't trust anyone else to their work. Like, they didn't want, you know, the director to add some sort of visual symbolism or make some directing choices to spice up, you know, the narrative or anything like that. And they didn't trust the actors to, you know, try something new with their acting to deliver these emotions without just saying it. Like, they didn't trust anyone else to deliver what they wanted to deliver in their script. So they just filled every scene up with dialogue. Because if every scene has so much dialogue, one, the director has no space to do any visual storytelling, and the actors will be so busy just like remembering their lines and delivering it somehow, you know, appropriately and acceptably. So no one will be able to touch their work. No one will add their own flair to the work. It's only their flair. You know? Like, at some point, I wanted to blame the director. Like, you know, maybe it's not the writer's fault. Like, why is this directing so bland? It's really just character after character after character. Like, sometimes it pans out. Sometimes it barely goes to random objects unless, like, the random object moves. But, like, nothing has much symbolism. There's very, very, very little visual symbolism in this show. I'm telling you. There really is so little. And so, like, I just felt like, you know, it was like shot after shot after shot. And like the director, did this director just not care enough that they just decided, let's just shoot, you know, their faces because they're all attractive. Like, let's just do that because it's a waste of time to, you know, let's just make our jobs easier. But then, like, I think maybe it's not entirely the director's fault. Like, maybe the writer wouldn't budge on any of these lines or any of these scenes. It's like, you know, oh, maybe we can cut this so we can add like this kind of shot or this, you know, some visual imagery, some silence just to break up the constant dialogue. And then the writer was like, no, that line's important to the character development, to the plot. I mean, there's barely any plot, but like, oh, it's important. You can't cut anything. So like maybe the writer didn't budge. And the director just gave up and said, you know what, if you're not gonna budge, I'm just gonna, you know, depict whatever you wrote here. No need to take any other shots. Like, it's fine. Whatever, you know, like, maybe the director just gave up. Okay? And like, okay, the actors. Talking about the actors. This is the first time where I'm really not gonna come after the actors for this. Like, I'm not gonna say like, oh, you know, if you were better actors, if Shin-Se-kyung could like speak more, you know, emotionally, I don't know, but like, if she could deliver any more emotion, maybe I would have liked Omiju. But I'm just gonna give everyone a free pass. It's like, first of all, I watched it in 2x speed. Because I was not paying attention to their acting. I don't know. They're definitely not gonna win any best actor, best actress, or anything for these roles. I'm pretty sure about that. They're not winning a Daesang. If they do, I will bite. I'll shut up if they win a Daesang for this. But you know, okay. But like, my point is, you know, I just was not paying attention to their acting. And like, I think half of their job was just like memorizing all the things they had to say on set that day. I really just didn't come after them anymore because maybe they're just doing their jobs. Like, they did their best with what was given to them, which was a lot. So I will not attack the actors. For the first time, I will not attack the actors. However, I will attack the second lead couple. The second lead couple, okay, Choi Soo-young's character, Sodan-ah, and Kang Tae-oh's character, Lee Young-hwa. I didn't care about their love line. I borderline hated it. Okay? Because, like, it felt so forced. And the development was so unnatural. Like, I know they were hinting on it. It's a little more, would I say sexual tension-y? Tension. It's a tense type of relationship. It's not like, oh, sweet and cute like Miju and Son Kyung. Not like that. But, like, yeah, it felt so forced and unnatural. Okay? And, like, I accepted Sodan-a's character. She's a tsundere. She's, a bitch. Like, yeah. I understood her character that way. And then they added this love line to, soften her. And, like, Lee Young-hwa, his feelings made no sense. Made so little sense to me. It's just like, huh? So I guess you're just attracted to her and then you chase after her and then you get mad at her because she's not reacting the way you want her to because she doesn't take your feelings seriously, and then suddenly, whoa, she was developing feelings for him. But it wasn't meant to be. Okay. I guess. So I feel like my main gripe with Young-hwa's character is very similar to my gripe with Omiju. It's just like, I felt like you have no individual journey. Like, you don't necessarily want anything other than to get it with this person. Other than to make this person fall for you, to be in a relationship with this other person. And that just is, it's just not something I am into. It's just like, no, I just hate it, okay? And also just a personal, something I personally hate, okay? No hate necessarily to Kang Tae-oh for portraying the character, or to Lee Young-hwa. Lee Young-hwa, the character, I hate. Kang Tae-oh, no hatred to him. Okay? Just saying this, okay? It's a personal thing. It's really just me. I hate puppy-like characters. She's like, oh, I'm gonna chase after someone because I like them so much. I hate those. Except for the one and only acceptable puppy, who is Wang Yong-shik in When the Camellia Blooms, played by Kang Han-ul. The only puppy that is allowed to exist from now on, in my eyes, is Wang Yong-shik. Because it's just like, his puppiness is just like, as annoying as it is, the amalgamation of all his character traits, his entire story, he's just like a country bumpkin, he's a mama's boy, he's a baby of the family, he's a reckless, righteous daredevil, he's a simp for the girl he likes, he's willing to go the extra mile to break societal, bounds just to prove that he loves her. Like, he's the full, he goes all in. Like, he's not just a puppy for no random reason. Like, he was just graced with so much love and has so much love to give. Okay, his puppiness makes sense to me. So only he can pull it off from now on. Kang Han-ul Baek-sang best actor, just saying. But sorry, that was just a personal gripe. That's just me. That's a me thing, okay? Not blaming the actor's portrayal of that. It's, once again, it's the writer's fault. I will fight the writer for this. Okay, back to the second lead couple. I'm sorry. I was happy when they broke up. I swear, I was happy when they broke up at the end. And then I was pissed off when they got back together. Because it would have been like a great story of how sometimes you just can't force relationships to happen. And then sometimes You're just in a completely different stage in life from someone. But you can grow from that. You can mature on your own and be a better person and find, the love that you deserve. Like, you don't have to force it with this person. And instead, they brought back like a senseless relationship that bordered on mistreatment. Like, genuinely. There are times when you're just like, wow, she's really terrible to him. But he's just gonna take that because, oh, I like her. I mean, at least Dongbek, Gong Yojin's character in When the Camellia Blooms, never mistreated Wang Yongshik for his love. Like, she just didn't want to, involve him in her complicated life because she's a social outcast. Okay, gosh. I didn't love that show entirely, but like, as I'm thinking about it, it's really not that bad. It's actually very warm and nice. Okay, sorry about this When the Camellia Blooms tangent. But, okay, talking about other shows now. Okay. Before I start talking about other shows and like my personal preferences and all that, you need to understand that these are my preferences. Okay, my tastes. Like, this show was loved by many people. But maybe it just wasn't what I wanted and how I wanted it. Even if I wanted to like it so much. Guys, you have no idea how desperately I wanted to like this show. And that's why I'm so frustrated about it. Because even when I was trying, I just couldn't get past the things I didn't like. Okay? So, you need to understand, these are my preferences. And comparing it to other shows is not saying that like, oh, these are the superior shows you should be watching instead. Like, no. The dramas I will talk about, later, they're just perfectly suited to my tastes. Or maybe like, they're the shows that created my tastes. Okay? But once again, my tastes, my preferences. Also, my podcast. I can say what I want, okay? So, preferences-wise, in terms of like, the message, which once again is not a bad message, just not something that speaks to me. So what does speak to you? What do you want, Francine? What do you want from this show that it just didn't give you? I like messages about how life is hard, but we just have to keep living. And that's how we find meaning in life. It's like sometimes life feels so meaningless. Sometimes you feel so lost. But if you just keep living, maybe you'll figure out that life is worth living. Just by whatever reason you find to keep going. Whatever it is. Whether it's purpose, sense of duty, family, friendship, love. Love. Okay, fine. Yeah, it could be. Just something. There must be something. But there. Those are the messages. That's just the number one message. If a show tells me that I just have to keep living, wow, beautiful, amazing, profound, fantastic, exquisite. Really. I mean, yeah, it tends to be a slice of life message. Like something about, shows like Missing or Live. Like you'd see people live their everyday lives and just, like it's difficult. It's there's a lot. Sometimes there's injustice. Sometimes there are people that just make life so difficult and so miserable. But if you just keep going, if you keep striving, you will survive. Like we all live incomplete lives, or you will find your sense of duty somehow to get you through the most difficult days. Because if no one does our job, who will serve the people? Who will protect the people? Stuff like that, okay? It's a very slice of life. So I get it. It's not that kind of show. Okay, I'm just stating. This is my preference. Next, the execution. What would I have wanted from the execution? As I mentioned earlier, I like silence. I like sadness. I love sadness. And I like melodramas. Yeah, I really do. I have to admit, I don't like light things. It's a light rom-com. Like, it tries to not be a rom-com, but it is. Like, okay, it's a rom-com with a message. Sure. But like it's not just about them falling in love. Debatable, but okay. Sorry, trying not to be mean. Yeah, light rom-com in my eyes. And historically, that's just not my cup of tea. And the thing is, like, execution-wise, I like slow shows. Hey, guys, I love my mister. I love that show. We all know I love that show. So my point is, I really like slow shows. And this show is slow, right? So I thought maybe that would appeal to me. But it didn't capture me like slow shows. Why? Why did it not capture me? Because it was slow, but they kept talking. If they talked less and stared at things more, maybe I would have loved it. Maybe if I could see some of the acting chops of these characters, wordless acting chops, maybe I would have appreciated this more. And so, I have to compare it to the slow romantic show, romance show that fits the execution bit that I love so much, which is Do You Like Brahms? Like, it's the show I can best compare it to in terms of like genre, romance genre, and like, yeah, it's the romance I like the most. Yeah, even if it's a mellow, which I prefer because sadness. I love sadness. So Brahms it's a very slow show. Oh, sorry. I talked about this show on my very first podcast episode, so if you have not heard that, perhaps give it a listen, give the show a chance. It's really, really good. Okay, so Brahms is very, very slow. Like, I hesitate to recommend it to people because it's so slow, but I just love it so much. Okay, but in Brahms, what I loved so much about this show, aside from the slow and sad and introspective execution, is that everyone had an individual journey somehow. It wasn't just the main lead, even the second lead girl, the second lead guy who barely got any screen time, even he had some character development. I'll stop at those 4 characters because, Run-On also has 4 main supporting characters, right? So yeah, like in Brahms, everyone had an individual journey somehow. And like the message of this show was about like unattainable dreams or being forced into a life even if it's not what you want, but it is what you need to do for various reasons because there are stakes in their lives. And like the message is also, the ending of the show is also about how not every ending is triumphant. You don't magically overcome all your struggles, all your issues. But, life is still worth living. Dreams aren't always worth chasing. But, like, you can still, that's okay. You can't always be number one. You can't always be the one who achieves all your dreams. And, yeah. I talked about this extensively on my Do You Like Brahms podcast episode 1. So yeah. And the thing with Brahms is that, yes, the romance was central. Definitely. But it was so perfectly intertwined with their individual struggles. Because they had individual struggles that affected their love, the development of their relationship in very realistic ways. Like, it was just perfectly intertwined. I'm telling you. Just my favorite romance show. And it's also written by a rookie writer, just saying, once again, I do not don't knock it till you try it. Rookie writers, give them all a chance. Okay. So yeah, Brahms, my most comparable romance to the show. And why, like, I can't help but compare it. Okay? Because I just feel like Brahms hit everything I love in a show perfectly well. And I didn't expect it to. Meanwhile, I thought I would like the show, and yet I did not expect that I would not. Okay, moving on. So, you may have been listening for a while now and realized, Francine, she hasn't brought up Kim Won-suk PD yet, huh? Haven't really brought up like missing in my mister yet, huh? Well. It's here. Our local every episode guest. It's my mister. It's Kim Won-suk PD and my mister. So, I always find a way to talk about my mister because it is the slowest and saddest show. It's so bleak. It's so heavy. And yet I loved every minute of it. Okay? Like, it said very little, but showed so much. Right? It for me, Kim Won-suk's like directing style is really just about moments of silence, of contemplation, of combining that with like excellent acting. Like really though, he really gets good actors that fit the roles really, really well. And then they portray this character, they portray this moment, and it's combined with like, you know, the music and the everything. Like it's just, see, moments with no lines. Like, okay, my mister, the scene where Ji-an was hearing Park Dong-hoon fighting the guy who, you know, was beating her up, her loan shark, and just like collapsing on that bridge because someone understood her without even telling her that he was going through all this trouble for her. Like, for once, to be understood, to be accepted despite doing something so monstrous. And so she didn't have to say like, oh, you know, while she was crying, I feel so understood. Like, imagine if she said anything during that moment. I would lose it. I'd just be like, I'm out. Why would you say anything during such a poignant, just such a moment? I'm sorry, I'll Google that later. But yeah, imagine that moment. With words, it would ruin it. But with silence, with the combination of, you know, her theme song, Grown Ups by Sondhya, I'm pretty sure that song played in that moment. I will check later. But yeah, my point is, there. Okay, that scene. Another scene of silence that's just perfect. In my mister, episode 7 or 8, when, you know, Park Dong-hoon and Lee Ji-an were drinking beer, and they were, you know, they couldn't decide on when to stop chugging because their eyes never met at the same time. And when it did, they both smiled. For the first time in this entire show, at each other, they smiled and kind of laughed. And like, there were no words. They didn't have to say, oh, we were looking at each other all this time. Oh, or like, oh, I drank so much because we kept missing each other. Like, something like that. If they said anything during that moment, other than just like laughing and smiling at each other, just to show that, you know, for once, like, maybe we're friends. Maybe like she doesn't have to feel so much animosity, you know, for people. Like, maybe she can let her walls down for just a single moment to smile and to laugh. It's like, if you put any words into that scene, it would just ruin it. But the writer trusted that the writer trusted that the director and the actors could portray that. The director, though I feel like the director is really like at the helm of the show, but like, you know, the director trusted that their acting, his directing, editing, everything will portray that message immediately without any words to ruin it. I went on like a crazy tangent. How long have I been talking about my mister? I did not time myself. My point is, my mister utilizes silence so well and has so much faith in every aspect of this show to convey that message without any words. And like, okay, let's talk about the lines, okay? Is the line, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal with, you know, Park Dong-hoon's voice. Like, is that line worthy of a screenshot? Will anyone understand the context of that line immediately and understand immediately what it's trying to tell you? You know, will people on Twitter see it? Will people who see it on Twitter like understand how deep and how painful but meaningful that line is without watching the show? It's not that screenshot worthy. It's not a big deal. But like for me, it left a greater impact on me than any of the quotable quotes that the show gave me. Like, it made me think instead of telling me how to think or how to feel. It made me think of like the things that we leave unsaid because we don't want the resentment, the embarrassment, the shame to grow. The way we just let things be to prevent, hurting others or hurting ourselves. Like, it's not a big deal. It may be a big deal. Like, it may really hurt you. It may really, like, break your soul. But you choose not to say anything because, like, if you verbalize it, if you put it out there into the world and then let it, if you just put it out there in the world, like, you'll have to deal with the consequences of that. You'll have to relive it over and over again as more and more people find out about it. And you can't just let it go because, it's supposed to be not a big deal. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. What? It's not a big deal. Just that line has made me come up with a reflection like that on the spot. This is not on my... that was not on my outline. Actually, like, all the moments I talked about, not on my outline. It's just me, like, really just the most impactful moments just come out immediately, spontaneously out of me. Because that's how much of an impact this show has left on me, with silence and with very minimal but meaningful lines that, once again, made me think instead of telling me how to think or how to feel. And, okay, moving on from my mister, I would like to give a special mention to Another Miss O, which is written by the same writer as my mister. Another Miss O, I hated that show. Oh my god. Watching that show was torture. Like, it was 18 episodes of just stupidity for most part. And then towards the end, we just started skipping scenes. And then I just watched it on 1.5 speed alone because I was just telling my sister what was going on because we couldn't stand, like, watching it fully. Like, the ending, the last 2 episodes. Anyway, I hated that show. But props to the writer. Because even Oh Hae-young, So Yoon-jin's character, even that girl made more sense to me as a character than anyone else in Run-On. Like, despite how stupid in love she was. Like, she just, like, threw herself out there, threw herself at someone, who was pretty much uninterested. But, like, she just told herself, like, no, I will stop being shackled by things in my past, and I will love fully with all my heart, because why can't I? Why do I have to be so cautious? Why do I have to be so afraid? Like, why can't I just love? Okay, so despite how stupid that was, and despite how, desperate she really seemed, she felt real. She felt more real to me than any of the main characters. Not relatable. I will not be that, well, oh man, no comment on whether or not she's personally relatable, but she felt very real. And the other characters, like, let's say, the other Miss Oh, another Oh Hae-young, the other Oh Hae-young, played by John Ye-bin. Like, she was frustrating. It's like, I just cannot pin you. Like, why are you acting the way you are? Like, somehow kind of entitled, somehow like a fake nice person. Like, what are you even? But, like, when you actually get to know her, because things did happen in her past that made her the way she is, right? That was actually explained to us. Yes. But, like, her actions in the present were not constantly justified by her past. Like, she was not verbalizing, like, oh yeah, because my parents didn't love me. I didn't really have a parent figure. I was always jealous. Like, it wasn't like every single time they interacted, she had to verbalize all her trauma or whatever. It's just like, she is the way she is. And yet somehow when you know what she's been through, like, okay, you know what? You're frustrating. You're a little terrible sometimes, but I understand you. You're real to me. And it helps that their situations, their backgrounds were super dramatic. Still possible in real life somehow, but, like, very dramatic, I guess. So, So like that's why they felt real. Because somehow like because their stories were really told, like you could understand like okay, you are the way you are. And yeah, I keep using this word, but like they felt like real people. Like they weren't trying to be anything. They just were. Okay, they were not trying to be quirky. They were not trying to be, cool, trying to be aloof, trying to be relatable. They just were people who were living their lives, who were like decent people, good people even. But they had terrible things happen to them. And so like, how do you just heal from that? Like, how do you just become like a decent person who is allowed to live your life without trauma, who is allowed to live your life happily, to find love, to be in love, to love fully, and to like accept yourself as yourself. There's a lot of that in that show. See, I just hated the comedy, but the message, the emotional stuff, it was good. It could have been so much better if it were a more serious show, but alas. Wow, I spent like ages talking about other shows. I'm sorry. But, so you may ask me like, you gave it a second chance. Can you please say something positive about the show? Oh yeah, I can. Hey, I'm not a terrible person. Like, I said a lot of negative things, but I can say something positive about the show. In many ways, in several ways, I would have liked this show. I mean, it was slow and it was warm. Like, hey, even when I was watching in 2x speed, there were some moments that got me to like chuckle, to be like, aw, some moments. It just wasn't executed the way I wanted it in general. So like things were lost on me. But there are in some ways, the core of it, I would have liked that. What else? The OST, very good. Is visually pretty to look at. I didn't care too much about the main couple's love line because, my gripe is that the female lead story, this was her only journey, really, this love line. But they do have chemistry and they're soft and cute and they're very attractive. They're very easy to look at. Yeah, the main four, they're easy to look at. LGBT plus representation, it's well handled and it's explicit about it. Like maybe that's the nice thing about saying everything, but like they're explicit about it, so you don't have to like read between the lines or like look for so much subtext just to prove like maybe that character's gay or whatever. It's like, no, they're gonna outright say like this, the actor and his boyfriend, like I'm asexual, like okay, outright saying it. And like the LGBT plus characters here, they're just living normal lives. Like there are no stereotypes, no exaggerations just to prove that they are LGBT plus. Like no, they just are people. So I like that. That's really well handled and very sensitive. So yeah, good step forward. Like maybe more stories will feature LGBT plus characters. That would be great. But what else? Wait. Okay, in general, like simple description of the show, it's a chill and light rom-com that isn't over dramatic. There, that's it. No, literally, that's it. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, okay? This outline was super long, but it got even longer because I ended up talking about like my mister and stuff. So, okay. First of all, don't attack me. Okay? If you made it through this show, you made it through this episode, you like the show, and just, are masochistic and want to hurt yourself by listening to someone criticize something you liked, well, I warned you, but thank you for the stream. Thank you for making it towards the end of the episode because you really helped my analytics out. And you know what, like, if it's your cup of tea, like, these aspects that I mentioned, like, if you like any of those, then it's well done in those aspects. And it's worth watching if that's what you like. But if your tastes are similar to mine, if you like what I like, the sadness, the slowness, the melodrama, the slice of life, the life is worth living even if it sucks, you know what I like. Actually, okay, I recently answered something on Twitter, but like, My top 5 K-dramas as of the moment are like number 1, Missing, number 2, Hospital Playlist, number 3, My Mister, number 4, Stranger, and number 5, Live. So all of those shows, except for Hospital Playlist, are pretty serious, pretty sad, pretty heavy at times. Stranger is the only one that's more like plotty, while the rest are more, slice of life emotions type. But judging on those 5 shows, you kind of know exactly what I'm into. Okay? So if you like what I like, then this show might not be for you. That's all I'm gonna say about it. You know what? That's it for me. I'm tired. I'll stop talking. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please don't hate me. I will try not to do these episodes often because, I would like to keep some of my friendships. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much once again for listening, and see you soon.